you're a real artist, the only person you're competing against is yourself. Are you really going to put yourself in that ugly state of mind that it takes sometimes to really get to the next level of creativity? It's a quest. It's the Don Quixote thing. It's a gift. And in German, that means poison. So when I was 20, I took a 3-month excursion to Europe, hitchhiking around, and I found myself one afternoon in a big piazza area in Copenhagen. And there was this old fellow laying on a bench sleeping. He had a nice beard and everything. I sat down cross-legged. I ended up doing a drawing of him. All of a sudden, on the side, somebody had dropped a coin. And I looked up and it was this nicely dressed lady. It piqued my interest, and that's where I made that connection between not necessarily the money aspect of it, but the appreciation that other people had of your efforts for doing it. I hit upon things like folk art and how the forms formulated in that. It made this big goulash for me. You know, I had a pot full of all these images in my head. European, folk, African, I was introduced to traveling around the United States and seeing the forms that people adhered to here. Just put it all in the pot, you know, and I've been struggling with all those pieces ever since. I'm just one part of a continuum of unknown or known artists. People are put on this earth compelled to reproduce and create things, to make discernments about why they are here, to make judgment as to why you are here.
I don't like to just stick with one thing. As you know, I draw, I paint, I do metal sculpture. All these things are related somehow. I really enjoy the fact that I can challenge myself differently, you know, if I feel like I'm getting stale into one form or another. That's important to me. Most of the pieces have something to do with this conglomerate of thinking that I have between religion and reality. You become kind of a poet. You try to make metaphors for life. Make them in such a way that when people see them, they identify something in them that is attracted to that piece. You have to, as an artist, find something obsessing or compulsive enough to waste a month or two of your life. This is Salome, and Salome obviously cut the head of John off. I did that with the specific purpose of the accomplishment of something evil. Call this one the despot, representative of all the guys that try to keep people down. It's a political statement, I guess. The sickle is threatening, and not only can they control them, but they'll also, you know, slice them up if they have to. Whoosh! I'm not afraid of reality, I'm just aware of it and that it can just bite you, you know? I think my forms fall into that category and they end up being very threatening. I use pitchforks a lot because everything I do has a little bit of a threatening quality to it, and I've always been fascinated with that sense of the devil as well as the angel. The angles kind of reach out at you, they project, and that's what sculpture should do, you know? So when you're looking at it, your eye goes from one piece to the next, and then when you're done with that, then you start thinking about it in the context of what it means. It's pretty obvious that it probably infers a little sexual connotation. So that's about all I have to say about this guy. It's fun to look at. I think you can see the edginess more in my drawings.
The forms are as intrinsically threatening as some of the forms that I do in the sculpture because of their sharpness, pointedness of the pieces, you know. I'll take the pen or pencil and I will attack the paper. I don't have any preconceived idea. I let it flow through me in some kind of a intuitive sense. I don't like to be repetitive about anything, and so it's very challenging to do the next drawing and the next drawing and the next drawing.
They're very compelling to look at, but they will numb your mind if you look at them long enough. That's why I call them manic musings. And these things aren't the things that people normally equate with beauty. I don't make pretty things. I make maybe compelling things, I hope, because if it doesn't have a compulsion, if it doesn't have some kind of a factor of excitement to them, then, you know, they don't really deserve to exist.
Over the last few years, I have created these little figures, and I call them the family of man. And I used to carve them from pieces of newel posts that we'd take when I was working and we were putting a staircase together.
The question about why you do the artwork for it, you do it to kind of identify and show it in a different aspect so that the new generation can tune in on it maybe a little bit and think about it. Problem with artwork is it's a little abstracted at times, and you don't want to just spoon feed people as, you know, to understand what you're going after. You got to deal with the fear of, is it, you know, what you have to say really that important? So I don't worry about that anymore. It's important to me to work. I'll let somebody else judge whatever it is later on. That's the family of man for me, and why I do artwork in general.
A couple of years ago, the sculptural furniture craze was going on pretty well, you know, and I decided that I wanted to start really recycling chunks of wood that were just being burned up or thrown in piles. I just thought to myself, you know, a chainsaw is just as good as a chisel, just takes a little bit more strength. That came to be a pretty good outlet for not being totally encumbered with all these emotional ties. I was interested in the wood as its intrinsic beauty, and as I manipulated it, I started realizing that I enjoyed the excitement of just diving in and not knowing where I was headed. For a chunk of wood, I enjoy going through this chunk to allow it to start breathing. I want your eye to move around, in and out. I want various convoluted areas of this thing being related to this hole that I made. Using the vocabulary I've created or identify with, like circles, holes, space, the things we're all aware of, that we walk through, that we sit on, that we lay on, that we do anything. And this chunk of wood, or these pieces of steel, or these lines that I get to choose from, all become fastened to this kind of vocabulary that I'm in control of. The metal pieces I find extremely exciting because I can actually put a piece together immediately. It's almost like sketching. You're using the parts that you have available to you to just keep that idea flourishing. The metal pieces have everything is suggested to me in a sense by the pieces that I put together. 90% of sculpture and everything is just arduous work. The eureka moment for me is when I have something happen that actually defines the unexpected. When do I know when it's done? I have to have a self-awareness that this piece is finished in the best capacity, that if I take it any further, it really won't mean much. That the idea has come to fruition, and I've been the conduit for that idea, and then it's done. And then I walk away from it. And when I come back to it, I look at it as if, where did that come from? And wow. And if I can't say wow after I'm done with it, then I don't feel personally that I succeeded at it. When you're done with something, you're relieved. But boy, I'll tell you, then you've got to start worrying about the next thing. It's a compulsion, and I don't think it's always happy.
You know all the stories about the famous artists. This guy was a drunk, that guy was a nutcase, this, that, and the other. I'm hoping I'm somewhere in between. I'd like to dignify my existence a little bit with what I do. The only way you dignify that is to keep making product that is unquestionably the best thing that's in you. The stopping point would be me dying, period. You know, I mean, that's it. If I could imagine where the end point was, I would be done. Now it seems like I'm charged to reinvent myself as an artist, or to actually finalize myself as an artist, you know. I think I've always been in the back of my mind preparing myself for that moment, and here it is.